This is a major turning point for the Minnesota Vikings. It has been revealed the Vikings have one of the most difficult schedules in the league. We're going to be talking about that, what that means for JJ McCarthy, as well as a very interesting trade candidate that could go down this season, including the Vikings wide receiver 3. We're going to be breaking all this down here in this video very quickly. Before we jump into it, be sure to hit the sub button if you haven't already. We know that just over 70% of you guys watching right now are not subscribed to the channel. We're going to have all your Vikings news here throughout this offseason, as we have some very sneaky stuff going down. You will not want to miss it. But without any further ado, let's jump into the first topic here of this video, which is going over the Vikings schedule. And according to reports, Warren Sharp of Sharp Football Analyst, the Vikings have the 5th hardest schedule in the league this season. Now, it feels like it's a broken record at this point, Griffen. It feels like we're always saying the Vikings have one of the most difficult schedules, regardless of if this team is good, if this team is bad. No matter what, it seems like the Vikings are always getting the short end of the stick. And under JJ McCarthy's first season, this is not the greatest step forward for him, especially in this. You want to have an easier schedule, but knowing JJ McCarthy, he's going to want a difficult one. But how do you think this is going to affect JJ McCarthy in his first few games here in the NFL?
I think it's sink or swim for him. He's looking at it like, all right, bring it on. I want the toughest schedule you can bring on just so that people can't say anything about me if we have success. Where even last season, Minnesota had the success that they had, but even the truest of Vikings fans knew we had an easy schedule last season. It was very much change of pace from what we usually get as far as those tough schedules. Other teams kind of got that easy end of the stick as compared to us. But for JJ McCarthy, it's more of the NFL or just the Vikings looking at saying, all right, this is a position where if we succeed, they can't say anything about the quarterback with this scenario because we're going to be playing a lot of tough teams where it's going to come down to our quarterback being the guy who wins us the game and becomes that X factor, along with an absolutely stacked defense, mind you, and a very front-loaded offense. But with that, it's going to be a very much big test for him. And if he can come out guns blazing this season and we have a even if we finish at 11-6, I think that's a very successful season for him. But obviously, if we do anything more than that, it's just going to be a great sign of what's to come for him in the future.
Yeah, we're going to have our normal suspects, the usual suspects that we play every year. Packers, Bears, Lions, 2 games each. And JJ McCarthy was lucky enough to sit behind Sam Darnold last year and watch these opponents and be able to kind of learn from that in a season where he wasn't able to play. And hopefully now going into this year, we're going to have some good games, much better games than what we did last year against, well, specifically the Lions in this case. But that's not the only tough opponents we're going to have, as the NFC North did get way better. But we're also going to be playing the AFC North. So the Ravens, the Bengals, the Browns, and the Steelers. Majority of these teams here got quite a bit better here. The Ravens, the Bengals, very, very good teams. The Browns made some interesting draft choices, but still not the worst team in the NFL. And the Steelers just somehow always managed to have a winning record. And it goes to show that this division is one of the most tough in the NFL, along with the NFC North. And these are just, more opponents where we're going to have to see JJ McCarthy really take that step up and really show off that he's the quarterback that is meant to be the franchise of this new team, this new Vikings organization. And we also have some more interesting looks ahead of this, and it really goes to show the choices that Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi made were done for a reason. As 5 teams the Vikings will face this season are ranked in the top 10 total pressures in this past season. Steelers, Eagles, Browns, Cowboys finished the campaign with top 4 pass rush grades in PFF in that order. And when we're going to look at this offensive line that Kwesi has built, that Kevin O'Connell has worked towards, this was a big reason to make this happen, to make sure that we're looking at a solid offensive line in front of JJ McCarthy, knowing that we're going to have one of the toughest schedules in the NFL with some of the toughest pass rushes. So, Griffen, looking at this, do you think this was planned out by the Vikings organization? Do you think that the Vikings were looking at this schedule, or had a hint of what could come? And, well, obviously we saw the issues last year as well, but knowing that JJ McCarthy was going to be the starter for this year, how important it was to need to bolster this offensive line for this upcoming schedule?
Well, we've known what our opponents were going to be for this upcoming season since before the end of last season. They released all that very early on so that teams kind of have an idea of what players they need to go after in the draft or how to game plan for certain opponents or what positions need to be assessed. In Minnesota, like in that one graphic where they're going up against a lot of really good defensive lines and really good edge rushers. What did they do? They bolstered that down because they saw how Swiss cheese the offensive line was last year, especially with the injuries that we had. So we went out, bolstered that, went and drafted Donovan Jackson, Joe Huber, undrafted absolute stud that I can't wait to see play if he gets the chance. I think he absolutely will. I think he's going to be competing with some guys for that spot, but he's definitely going to be rotating with Donovan Jackson, I think, or filling in for injuries or just on other snaps. So that's going to be very exciting. And what I really like about this too is that, like I said, with JJ McCarthy, look at the quarterbacks he's going to have to go up against. I'm not too worried about the Steelers except for their defense. So hopefully if our defense can just create some points on turnovers, that's how we're going to win that game. But he's going to be going to get up against Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and maybe Shedeur Sanders if he's starting by that point, or Joe Flacco. Who knows? Browns might not be too much of an issue. But then we got to play against the entire NFC East, where the Giants, they did get a lot better, and they are going to be a team that is one to watch out for despite having really tough schedule. Then you got the Eagles, you got the Commanders, you got the Cowboys. Cowboys, they suck. I'm not too worried about them, but they always play us really tough. So that's the kind of double-edged sword with the Cowboys there. Eagles, that's always going to be a tough one down to the wire. In regular season, we tend to do all right against them, but it can go either close game or an absolute blowout. There's going to be no in between for that one. And then we play some other teams that are scattered around. We got the Chargers, Justin Herbert. That's going to be good. We got to play against Sam Darnold in a revenge game. And then we play against Kirk Cousins or Michael Penix against the Falcons. So that's going to be interesting to see him go up against all these different quarterbacks. Yeah, he's not going against them 1-to-1, but if our defense can show up, we can shut down those offenses, shut down those quarterbacks, and it's just JJ can just take all these guys down in relatively his first year as a rookie year in his first year as a starter. And that's going to be interesting to watch and see how it develops throughout the season.
Yeah, and I like the confidence that JJ McCarthy so far has shown, even before the season has started. I think that he understands the weapon he has. He understands the team is built around him, and it goes to show that, he's taking ownership in this team. He's taking responsibility, and I'm very excited to see, even though the schedule's tough, how much confidence he's going to show in these games and, kind of hold his head high during this, because we know that we have the weapons, and we know that there could be some changes going on throughout the season as well, especially with the beginning of the season, where we may see a Jordan Addison suspension and see newly acquired drafted Tai Felton come into this lineup and see and show to, the NFL fan base, the Vikings fan base, what he's really made of. And this alone causes a bit of concern for a guy named Jalen Nailor, who we've seen have success last year, but with this potential of wide receiver 3, has shown that he could be a wide receiver 2, but the fact that he's kind of been taken out of his role by Justin Jefferson, which is kind of crazy enough, with that whole slot receiver, things may move where the Vikings want Tai Felton over Jalen Nailor. And this comes here from this quote coming from the PFN Sterling G. The former 6th-round pick in the final season of his rookie contract has played roughly 60% of career snaps out of the wide, with Jefferson largely playing the slot in 3 receiver sets. And we know that, Jalen Nailor is a very, very good receiver. Although he is in the final year of his rookie deal, he may be wanting quite a bit of money because he's been able to show in his career as well. I'll pull this back up, that he's been a very, very solid receiver. And those 6 touchdowns last year coming during injuries, suspensions, everything, and when given the opportunity, he's shown he's been able to really work that ball very well with no matter what quarterback is in the system. And that was when Sam Darnold was there. And, he's running routes like he's been in the league for, 10, 15 years. So when we're looking up this, it's a very interesting decision to maybe move Tai Felton to wide receiver 3. And currently where we're sitting, he is at wide receiver 5 behind Rondale Moore, but I expect that to change very, very quickly. Griffen, what do you think about a potential Tai Felton wide receiver 3, maybe even a 2 if Jordan Addison is getting that suspension? I feel like there's a lot of uncertainty right now with the wide receiver room, even though the Vikings did load up on receivers here.
Yeah, we're in an age of the NFL right now where speed kills. And if you want to win games, you need to have guys that are fast. We see it with the Lions, regrettably, with Jameson Williams. We've seen it with the Miami Dolphins with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, even Raheem Mostert. And you see it with Kansas City with Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy. Speed is the name of the game right now. And Minnesota went out and got that with Tai Felton because he is fast. So that's what they want to have on those drag routes, on those slants, on those corners where he can just break out and just take off, or on those press streaks where he can just go off and just burn a guy. That's going to be something that'll be interesting to see. And then the thing about Jalen Nailor as well, he fills in for those spots perfectly. And what the biggest thing that stuck out to me on his list of stats from last year is when you look at the amount of total catches he had, he had 28 catches, and 23 of those were for first downs. So those come in at 28 catches. So yeah, 5 of those were only short of the line to gain. So he comes in and makes those big time catches when he needs to. And that's a big thing for Minnesota in those big situations. Even with CJ Ham, hasn't really been utilized as much. But when it's a 4th and 2 and we have him going out of a flat route and he makes a catch for 2 yards and they need to have it game sealing first down, those are huge. And Jalen Nailor is one of those guys where if Hawkinson, Addison, Jefferson, or even Tai Felton's locked down, you can throw it off to him and he is reliable. And the thing with Tai Felton too is he's going to appear like the shiny new toy, especially if Jordan Addison is suspended. So now a lot of teams are going to be focusing on Tai Felton as much as Justin Jefferson, just because of the amount of attention he demands, being the best wide receiver in the league, the best wide receiver we've seen since Randy Moss, mind you. And with that, with Tai Felton, teams are going to go on to him and say, okay, we need to double him now too, because he is so fast that he's just going to burn our guys. Make sure we have one guy short to press him and one guy deep to stop him if he gets loose. So that's going to bring a lot of attention off of Hawkinson, off of Jalen Nailor to make those big time catches, or for JJ to make even crazier reads.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of uncertainty regarding that, but we know that whatever situation the Vikings are in, they have the assets to be able to make it work. Like you said, big plays are in Jalen Nailor's game, while also just being clutch at any point needed. And I feel like he knows that, the Vikings know that, and the contract may be a bit more expensive than the Vikings are looking at, which is why I think it's unlikely that Jalen Nailor is traded before. But when it comes to the October trade deadline, that could be a big spot for the Vikings to go get some capital, whether it is draft, whether it's another player, because we know that teams are going to be looking for this depth wide receiver that has, I would argue wide receiver 1 potential, but certainly could even go down as far as 2, 3, even 4 if need be. And regardless of where he is, I think he will work out no matter where it is. And when we look at this, of course, I'll pull up the depth chart just before we finish this one off here. Rondale Moore there currently in the 4, Tai Felton at 5, Jalen Nailor 3, Jordan Addison 2, and of course Justin Jefferson 1. There's a lot of movement that can happen in that wide receiver 3 slot, and I think we're going to see quite a bit of that here in this season, whether or not it's due to injuries, suspensions, trades. We're not really sure yet, but the Vikings have set themselves up in a very good spot in receivers, and even excluding that, TJ Hawkinson, he's just another guy that can go out there, catch a ball wherever it is, and he's your guy that you need to go to as well. So the Vikings have a lot of potential there on the receiver side of things, and it's going to be very interesting to see where this does end up now. Halfway through the season, I guess we could say. But Griffen, you got anything else before we finish the video off here?
Yeah, we didn't really get to touch on Rondale Moore too much and what he's going to bring to this as well. Like I said, with speed being a big thing, he's also a guy who is very fast. So Jalen Nailor could very much be on that trade block just because of that, where if Minnesota has Rondale Moore and Tai Felton, who are really fast, they can make really good catches and break out and do what Jalen Nailor was doing, but be faster at it. They're going to try and get some draft capital for it. And Rondale Moore also being a question mark early on to start the season or start training camp or preseason, that's going to be one where Minnesota can utilize Jalen Nailor while they have him. Then when Rondale Moore is healthy, expect him to be on the trade block for sure.
Yeah, I'm expecting to see a lot of movement on this wide receiver core for this team. I like Rondale Moore a lot, and I'm excited to have him on the team, but you never know what kind of role he's going to fill at this point. But that's all we got in this video. Let us know in the comments below what you think about this receiving core. I think there's a lot of movement. Do you want to see Jalen Nailor traded? Definitely a guy that we love to have on the team, but like we mentioned previously in a few videos ago, the contract stuff for him could be a bit tricky when it does come down to a possible extension, and why not trade him? Get some assets if he is going to be potentially this wide receiver 4 guy. So let us know in the comments below what you think about all of that, but that's all we got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. Remember, we have a lot of content coming. You won't want to miss it, but that's all we got. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.